welcome. I'm Sia Warlick, CEO of Cooperative Business New Zealand, which is the peak body for cooperatives, mutuals, and member-owned businesses in New Zealand. So thanks so much, listeners, for joining this Leader Conversation series, where senior leaders and subject matter experts share their knowledge and their insights on the cooperative model. And I'm joined today by Craig Erasmus, who is the Chief Executive of Seasonal Solutions Cooperative. Welcome, Craig.
Morning.
Thanks so much for joining us. And I wondered if you could start off by walking us through a little bit about the history of Seasonal Solutions, what you do, and a bit about your membership.
Yeah, no problem at all. Seasonal Solutions were effectively one of the founders, if not claiming the founder, of the current day RSE scheme as we know it. The RSE scheme brings in roughly 18,000 individuals into New Zealand each year to work in the horticulture industry on the North and South Islands of New Zealand. Seasonal Solutions, we're a member-driven cooperative. Currently, I think we have 41 members, of which 38 are active. And we bring in about 1,100 individuals into the country each year who work on our members' properties for between 2 and 9 months, with an average of roughly 6 months stay with us each season. Our members vary significantly in terms of horticultural products, all based on the South Island. Over 50% of our business is based out of Marlborough, with a large focus on winter pruning. And then we have the majority of our members, so I think it's just under 30 members, are based down in Central Otago, where we service summer fruit, pit fruit, and viticulture. We're also involved in veggies in Canterbury and hops up in Nelson. So quite a variety of members, a variety of member needs, different seasons. And one of the strengths of our cooperative is our ability to share labour amongst our members so that we can maximize the outcomes for the people who work with us on a seasonal basis, so they can maximize their earnings and opportunity to earn, but also we can focus labour requirements on the peak periods required by each of our members' specific harvest needs and winter pruning needs.
Awesome. So I think really keen to learn, before we delve into your membership and your active member process, really keen to learn a little bit more about that RSE scheme and just how does it functionally operate. When you said that you've got people that vary maybe from 2 to 9 months with an average of 6 months, how do you house those people as a cooperative, or what's your responsibility for these individuals that you bring in?
So the RSE scheme is primarily aimed at providing seasonal solutions for horticultural purposes. We're able to work with amongst our membership and with other RSE employers to effectively maximize the benefit of an individual's stay in New Zealand. So, for example, we may have staff work for us for 2 months down in Central Otago and then go and work up in Marlborough for 2 months, giving them a 7-month stay with us. That would be what we'd call an internal joint venture. Or we may work with an external party who's also an accredited RSE employer, such as Mr. Apple on the North Island, where staff may work on the North Island for 2 months and then come and work down in the South Island for 5 months. So it's really all about partnerships and relationships and sharing resources. The RSE scheme is highly regulated immigration scheme. It's focused around Kiwis first. But in terms of the question of housing, we have strong regulations around the quality of that housing, which is audited annually and reviewed by the Labour Inspectorate. So what we're all about is high quality housing, provides great pastoral care outcomes, which in turn facilitate the maximization of the productivity of the individual working on one of our members' properties. So the quality of housing is fundamentally important to us.
Yeah.
One of the challenges actually with the RSC scheme is what I often refer to as the infrastructure. There's a lot of talk about increasing the number of RSC into the country. And I think our current cap is around 22,000 visas. I think as an overall collective of employers, we're using about 18,000 of those visas. I mean, these are rough numbers. So there's quite a big difference in that in that number. I believe a lot of that is driven by there being insufficient infrastructure in terms of quality RSE beds to facilitate bringing in more staff from the Pacific. So we work on a bed these days is costing us anywhere north of $40,000 to $70,000.
I see. Wow.
To invest. So the capital required to support this quality seasonal labor is quite significant.
Yeah, that's a huge investment, and I guess it makes complete sense that it's highly regulated when you kind of got a responsibility to the people that you're bringing into the country. And so you mentioned that there were around 1,100 people that you would normally bring in under that scheme. Which countries do they come from?
The vast majority, over 90%, of our seasonal staff come from Vanuatu. We bring in a small number from the Solomons, Fiji, and Kiribati. Strategically, we are looking to improve that distribution. So we index quite heavily into Vanuatu, and there is some concern from a organizational risk management perspective. But when we look at Vanuatu as a country, I think we're one of the largest, if not the largest, employer in Vanuatu. So we have an immense social responsibility.
Yes, absolutely.
To Vanuatu, its country, its government, its people, its communities, which we really value and are very mindful of.
Yeah. No, it's incredibly interesting when you think about the diversity of people that are coming into New Zealand under that scheme. That's for sure. So I'm curious now to maybe turn our attention a bit to your members. So from the way that you've described your membership, you must have a mix of smaller members, maybe family-owned businesses and corporates. Is that correct?
We have got a fantastic eclectic mix of membership, and I think that's one of the great strengths of our business. We range from market gardeners who supply veggie markets of Dunedin, who would employ 3 to 5 RSE staff a season, and are hands-on managed by family, through to what I'd call mid-tier SMEs in New Zealand, in the fruit space, all the way through to multinational wine companies. So we have a fair portion of our shareholding is what we call internationals, or foreign ownership, and those are predominantly the large international wine companies.
And so with that incredible mix that you've just described, how do you have sort of conversations around the value of the cooperative structure when you've got such a variance, as you said, from those people growing vegetables for a particular region to an international wine company?
I think it's like any business or cooperative for that matter. If we look at what we're about, we're about providing a solution to our members' needs. And regardless of whether you're mom and pop's veggie growers or you're a multinational, you have the same needs. You have the needs for quality staff when you need them, at a fair price. And I think that's really what our role in the success of our members' businesses is. And I think it doesn't differ in many ways between our different members. We provide fantastic worker-ready staff who are able to work with our members on creating the right outcomes for our members and for the individuals doing the work. Our business, if we look at why we exist from a business strategic perspective or visionary perspective, is we're about creating prosperity in the Pacific. And that prosperity it transcends our members and their businesses and their families and their shareholders, our local communities, our local government, and then through to our staff, our seasonal staff, and themselves as individuals, their communities, and our sending country governments. So we're that conduit that allows the creation of solutions to all parties, which will hopefully deliver in the long term prosperity to everyone. So I think it's the similarity between the needs of our differing members is actually is very minor. We're all looking for a similar solution.
Yeah, sure. I really like the phrase that you mentioned there about bringing prosperity to the Pacific. It's such a fantastic, I guess, value or vision that you can really wrap your head around.
Yeah, and I think that when we talk about the Pacific, that New Zealand's part of the Pacific community, and it's about prosperity for New Zealand as a country and its people. And it's about prosperity for our sending countries, communities, and their people. So it's a fantastic partnership of two needs being brought together in one solution that benefits everyone.
Yeah.
And if we get it right, and it's really powerful, and it's great to be part of something that does so much good.
Yeah, absolutely. And so thinking about your members again, so you said you've got 41 members and 38 of them are active. So can you talk a bit about the process that you've been through to engage with your active members, and then how you've identified those that you see that are, haven't been active or transacting?
We've been on a bit of a journey, I suppose, like any business. If we go back just short of 20 years of it being around, and at the start, we started down in Central Otago. We were basically the only RSC employer, so just about everyone became a member. So we had a huge membership base, and over time, some of those members' businesses grew. Some of them had great succession plans. Some fell by the wayside. So from the composition of our membership base, they evolved over time, and naturally that happens. Some of those businesses were bought by other parties from other regions, but also we were part of a learning and education process where some of our members, from their involvement with us, created their own understanding with the RSE scheme and were able to become RSE employers in their own right. So they evolved in their needs for our service. And then we started in Central Otago. We grew into Marlborough, and grew into Canterbury and into Nelson over time. So a long period of growth. And we sat down as a board most probably just over 12 months ago, and started reviewing our shareholder list. And I think at that stage we were roughly 63 individual shareholders.
Right. Okay. So quite a difference to what you see now, 41.
Yeah. We had this long list of shareholders, and like many businesses, we're very proud of our long list, but started applying our minds to it. Was why did we have this long list, and was it appropriate for us to have a long list? And as most listeners would be aware who are involved in co-ops, to remain a co-op, you need to have 60% of your voting members or voting rights actively engaged in the co-op, and I think that's defined in the Co-ops Act as active members, and there's various ways one can be an active member, but basically it's having a commercial interaction or relationship with the co-op. And each year we would tick the 60%, not too hard to do that, but it's what those unactive shareholders are all about after a while. And we reviewed that and then considered being a member representative organization where the co-op is managed by the members for the members, effectively as part of the thought process around the co-op is that your inactive members could start effectively being disruptive or not being aligned with the interests of the active members.
I see.
That was one thought process. The second sort of side one was we, with over 50 members, we were caught up with the FMA, which causes all sorts of external audit fee costs due to compliance regulations as part of FMA reporting. So you sort of looked at that and said, well, this isn't really giving us much value. So we looked at our membership from a hygiene perspective and from a cost management perspective, and began a process of working through buying back the shares of our non-active members. And we worked through that. We've had a couple of bites at the old apple, and finally got to a situation where we're in the main, all of our members are active. Our 3 unactive members, one actually doesn't use a service but supplies a service, so that would be an active member. And the other two, one of the other 2 is looking to engage with purchasing our service or taking on staff where they haven't for a long period of time. And the other is looking to use us in a minor capacity. So you're right on the edge, but still engaged with our co-op. So you could say we're 100% active membership. And there's a lot of intellectual property involved. So you want to ensure that the preservation of the value of the co-op is for members who are engaging with the co-op and contributing in their the payment of their fees for the services that we hopefully provide that are beneficial to our members. So it's been an interesting process. The number of conversations around why we were going through the process, and education, and the vast majority of members, I don't think we had anyone ultimately really push back in any significant way to the desire of the board to go down that route. So I'd highly recommend those in a governance senior management position to really look at your membership base. Is it deriving value for other members? Is it deriving value to the co-op as a whole? But really, what is the risk of that non-engaged membership base to the overall organization? And when you consider that risk, and then how do you mitigate that? That's just a journey we've been on, and it's great now. I know that everyone on our distribution list is, they're really part of it, and we've got an active relationship, which we really value.
And I guess that the process that you've just described is incredibly valuable to point out to newer cooperatives, so that I guess they can understand that your founding shareholder members, for example, over time may change, may shift, and that it is really important to keep that. I guess becomes a hygiene factor of really understanding which members are active and which members aren't, and then over time, if the proportion does shift, what implication could that have for the cooperative?
Yeah, I think there's 2 aspects to that. The first I think is in the governance space and the representation space. And I think that's everyone's got a slightly different constitution in how they work through membership representation in the realm of governance, where you could come unstuck inadvertently if you've got the wrong mix in there. But for me, when you look at a cooperative, we're like a family, and we're all as strong as our weakest member in many ways.
Yeah.
And that's got a huge amount of risk, because to retain our social license to operate, and I think you brought a great example up with the accommodation, if one of our members has got what we call the John Campbell test, if you end up on Campbell Live and with some pretty shoddy accommodation or dodgy employment practices, by implication, all of your members are tarnished with that same brush.
I see.
So that for us, reputationally and social license is really important, and to be honest, it gives us our status in which to continue to operate under the RSE scheme. So the other bit is when you look at it as health and safety, how we're all linked. So when your health and safety obligations, we're effectively joint PCBUs with each of our members, because we're the employer and we have our staff on our members' properties. So we've got this massive joint PCBU relationship, and how risk is actually linked between the family of veggie growers and that multinational wine company we talked about before. So who you keep company with is really important and needs to be constantly considered, because you can find yourself in a sticky situation if that you're totally unaware of the relationships that you may have had with different parties. So that's really important to us.
Can you elaborate on the PCBU that you mentioned? What actually is that?
So effectively, under the health and safety legislation, we have a shared responsibility, person conducting a business undertaking, for the health and safety of our staff. And because we have staff on someone else's property, both the property operator, so that is our member, and ourselves, we have joint responsibility for the health and safety of those individuals while at work. So and then if we were to effectively be prosecuted, the whole co-op would be prosecuted for potentially an issue with a specific member on a specific member's property. Dare I say it, we went on a journey, and you start really exploring how you're all interrelated as within a co-op, and we're a relatively small co-op. I think we just make the top 30 list. I think we scrape on near the bottom there. We're very proud of the company we keep in that list. But with co-ops, undercapitalization is a real challenge. And we experienced an issue where one of our members started to not pay their bills on time, found ourselves very exposed in that situation, and realized our capitalization was a bit thin, but also how quickly we were all our future was all linked to the performance of one individual member complying with our trading terms. So that's another example of how you're all related. And we have had a member very sadly go into receivership a couple of years ago, owing a fairly chunky amount of money, and at the end of the day, that loss was borne by all of our members.
Yes.
So it's part of that, being part of a co-op. You're all linked and you're in it together.
Yes.
In most probably more ways than one thinks.
Yeah, and I guess from your business example, that we've talked about the variance in, I guess, investment that you might need to make for a particular to house a particular number of people in a larger member compared to a smaller member. Managing that variance must also be a bit tricky from your perspective.
Yes, effectively, we in that case, the investment in accommodation is either directly by the member, or as a co-op we facilitate the leasing of properties. So effectively it's a bit of an off balance sheet funding exercise, where effectively those members who are benefiting from the co-op's exposure to that off-balance sheet liability, that lease that we may enter into on for specialist RSE accommodation, we offset that with an agreement, with an underwrite agreement with those individual members, so that we protect in the interests of each of those members, so that there's not cross-contamination of, we try to minimize that cross-contamination of risk, for example, in that example that you raised. So it is tricky. It's always front of mind. Is this fair for all members? Are any groups of members being overly penalized or disadvantaged? Remembering that in a co-op, everyone's vote is one vote regardless of their size. And you know, that's really important principle when one considers how the co-op works. So a member who may be doing 20% of our overall business has the same vote as someone who's doing 2%.
Yes.
When it comes down to it. So we're all the same, and we're in it together.
Yeah. Yeah. And so are you able to share, you know, you mentioned undercapitalization, any kind of instances where that's been a real challenge?
Well, I think for us, like so many businesses, we went through COVID. We most probably had a bit of a skinny balance sheet. Like at the end of the day, we basically facilitate the payment of wages in the main, where we came to the realization that, you know, we only had X number of weeks of wages sitting in the bank at any one time, and any natural disaster, unforeseen major event, dare I say, large member failure to comply with trading terms, suddenly exposes your capital base, and if that's pretty skinny, life can become pretty tricky very quickly. And also underneath all that is you may have in those examples have an exposure that you've only measured on your receivables list, but you've got a relationship that extends into the future. And how do you unwind that in sufficient time and have sufficient capital to withstand unwinding any relationship within the co-op that you may need to? So we've in our case, we've grown our capital. I think we've grown it by just under 100% in the last three years, and we've done that through communication with our members, getting their buy-in, education, and ensuring that we got the buy-in from our members, and then reducing our rebating, retaining any rebates that we would have potentially been paying out, and we retaining those and converting those into equity, issuing those as equity, so that the benefit of that rebate remains in the hands of the member who would have got the rebate, but they're leaving their cash and shares. And then we've been running a monthly charge on a premium of 1% on our services, effectively a capital raise, which we rebate in shares at the end of every year. So we've got a target. We're working towards it. We've got about a year to go, and then we'll be in that space in terms of, you know, that targets in dollars, and then we'll reassess whether that's the appropriate target, or do we need to grow that more. But we're far more resilient in terms of our capital base, and you know, I think we've seen a number of co-ops fail due to undercapitalization in the past, and a really important part of being a co-op. You can't lean on others' balance sheets because you don't necessarily have the commitment when the crunch comes. You need to have that money sitting within the organization. So strongly recommend people look at that.
Yeah, it's crucially important. And I'm just curious, did you need to make any changes to your constitution at all, or your shareholder agreements, in order to go through the process that you've just described?
No, no,
No,
it had been foreseen in our overall thought
I see.
process around how we could raise capital. Um, so to be honest, we did a major constitutional review going back in 2016, 2017. So we'd had our initial constitution, we reviewed that 2016, 17, a lot to do with capital base and rebating. But at that stage, we weren't envisaging that we were undercapitalized in any way. It was a thought process around what we may need to do in the future, but we really only got really stuck into it in the last couple of years post COVID, and the realization of
Right.
exposure. You get a chunky bad debt come through your books, and you look at that, and everyone starts actually considering some of the risks around undercapitalization, and how to basically anti-fragile your company and your business.
Yes. Yeah. Amazing. Well, that's a fantastically fascinating conversation. Thank you so much, Craig. Really appreciate your, your time and your insights on active membership and capitalisation, and just digging a little bit more into that RSE scheme, which is so crucially important for New Zealand, that's for sure.
No problem at all. Great spending some time with you as always.
Well, thank you once again, Craig, for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you and learning about Seasonal Solutions Cooperative. For those of you wanting to engage on the co-op, mutual, or member-owned business model and be part of our network, or if you're considering establishing a co-op here in New Zealand, please do get in touch. Thanks everyone for joining us today.